The most confident person in the room is, statistically, the one most likely to be wrong. That's not a feeling, that's one of the most uncomfortable findings in the history of forecasting research. And by the end of this file, you'll be able to spot it in any meeting, any dinner party, and any so-called expert selling you certainty. I should say up front, I've spent years walking into companies, auditing operations, evaluating leadership teams, watching how decisions actually get made when the door closes. Different industries, different continents, same pattern every time. There's always one voice with absolute messianic certainty. One framework, one buzzword, one grand theory that explains every crisis. They never say, "I don't know," they never flinch, and they keep getting promoted. In 1953, the philosopher Isaiah Berlin took a single surviving line from an ancient Greek poet, Archilochus. "The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing," and turned it into the most useful lens on expertise ever written. The hedgehog knows one big thing and forces the entire messy world into that single frame. The fox knows many things, adapts to context, and can hold uncertainty without panicking. And yes, before you type it, dividing the whole human race into two neat boxes is, in itself, a very hedgehog thing to do. I know. But hold the irony for 8 minutes, because this particular box explains almost every corporate disaster I've ever walked through, and the numbers behind it are worse than you think. We are wired to crave certainty. A political psychologist named Philip Tetlock decided to measure what that craving costs. He spent about 2 decades tracking 284 credentialed experts, economists, political scientists, analysts, the people who go on television, and collected around 28,000 specific, checkable predictions. The headline finding became famous. The average expert performed about as well as what Tetlock's readers dubbed a dart-throwing chimpanzee. But the finding underneath the headline is the one that matters. When he sorted the experts into hedgehogs and foxes, confidence and accuracy came apart completely. The hedgehogs, the ones with the grand unified theory, the ones most likely to say definitely and appear on the news, did the worst. The foxes, the ones hedging, qualifying, saying it depends, consistently did better. The more famous the expert, the worse the forecast. Read that again. Fame and certainty predicted error. Because when reality contradicted the hedgehog's one big idea, the hedgehog didn't update the idea. He blamed reality. Wrong but never in doubt. So the obvious question, if certainty performs this badly, why do companies keep hiring it, promoting it, and putting it on stage? Here's the part the academic version is too polite to say. The hedgehog isn't always confused. Often he's calculating. Certainty is a sales tactic. Nuance doesn't win board votes. It depends on the variables, has never once secured a £10 million budget. Conviction gets the promotion, the funding, the applause, and by the time the strategy implodes, the confident man has usually been promoted twice more or left with a package. Confidence is a strategy for status. Accuracy is somebody else's problem. And there's a built-in insurance policy. The confident man is never audited. Nobody goes back and scores last year's predictions. There's no scoreboard in the boardroom, no league table at the dinner party. The hedgehog's failed forecasts simply evaporate, while his one lucky hit gets retold for a decade. That asymmetry, hits remembered, misses deleted, is the engine that keeps the whole confidence economy running. I've sat in the rooms where it gets rehearsed. The quarterly forecast meeting is my favorite piece of corporate theatre. A man stands in front of a slide with a number he cannot possibly know, presents it to 1 decimal place, and the room nods because the decimal is the costume. Precision impersonating knowledge. Nobody asks for the error bars because error bars have never once got a budget approved. I once watched a leadership team applaud a 5-year projection from a man who, 6 months earlier, had missed his own quarter by 40%. Nobody remembered, nobody checked, and no company on earth proves where this ends better than one that literally invented its own executioner. Kodak. The story everyone tells is that Kodak missed the digital camera. The story is wrong. Kodak built the first digital camera, 1975. One of their own engineers, Stephen Sasson, walked it into the building. They had the patent, the talent, and the market. What they also had was a leadership floor full of hedgehogs whose one big thing was print film margin. Film was where the money lived, so film became the theory of everything, and every piece of evidence that didn't fit got filed as a threat. The digital prototype wasn't information, it was heresy. For 3 decades, the map said film, while the territory quietly filled up with pixels. They defended the fortress right up until 2012, when the fortress filed for bankruptcy. And here's the detail I've seen replayed in miniature inside a dozen ordinary companies. The one-tool manager. When your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Put a marketing hedgehog in charge, and every crisis becomes a brand problem. Put a finance hedgehog in charge, and every crisis becomes a cost problem. I've watched a company cost-cut its way directly into the ground, while the actual problem, a dying product, sat unexamined in plain sight. The hedgehog doesn't adapt the tool to the territory. He bends the territory until it fits the tool or until it breaks, which would be safely somebody else's tragedy, except you don't have to enter a boardroom to meet this animal. You met one last week. Step out of the office and listen to how people talk. At networking events, family dinners, anywhere status is quietly being negotiated. You will always meet the person who deploys credentials as a weapon. The job title, the degree, the years abroad, the portfolio. Delivered not as background, but as a license, a master key that lets them tell you with total authority how the economy works, how relationships work, how you should be living your life. Watch them closely, because here's what the certainty actually is. Armor. A real hedgehog, when threatened, curls into a ball and points its spines outward. The human version does exactly the same thing with opinions. Rigid positions out, soft parts hidden, because I don't know requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is the one expense the insecure can't afford. The louder someone insists their experience has settled every question, the more precisely you're being shown the size of the doubt underneath. And notice what the flex is for. Unsolicited certainty is a hierarchy move. It isn't trying to inform you, it's trying to rank you, and the internet has industrialized the whole racket. The algorithm is a hedgehog breeding program. Certainty gets clicks, nuance gets scrolled past. The crypto prophet who has never been more sure. The doom forecaster who's predicted 12 of the last 2 recessions. The productivity guru with the one system that fixes your entire life. Notice that none of them ever post their misses. The feed only shows you conviction, which means the longer you soak in it, the more normal absolute certainty sounds, and the more suspicious honest doubt becomes. Recalibrate for that, because the genuinely competent people you meet do something almost invisible by comparison. They ask questions, they qualify, they say, in my experience, and it may not transfer. It doesn't sparkle at a dinner party, it's just usually correct. So the practical question, the only question this channel cares about, is how you tell them apart before it costs you money, time, or a marriage. Run the language test. Competence and confidence sound similar. Their grammar is opposite. The people to be wary of speak in absolutes. This is the secret, guaranteed. 5 steps that will transform your business. Trust me, I've seen it all. That's the ball curling, spines out. The people worth listening to speak in conditionals, perhaps. It depends on the variables. Here's what worked in my context. Your context may differ. That isn't weakness. That's someone actually looking at the ground instead of reading from the map. Tetlock's foxes beat the hedgehogs precisely because they talked like that. The hedging wasn't a lack of knowledge, it was the knowledge. And there's a practical corollary for every meeting you'll ever sit in. When 2 people disagree, the room instinctively sides with the more confident one. Train yourself to flip it. Confidence is free, it costs nothing to manufacture, and the market is flooded with it. Doubt in a competent person is expensive. It means they've actually been to the territory, side with the expensive signal. So here's the assignment. For the next week, run a quiet audit, meetings, group chats, dinner tables, the podcasts you listen to, me included. 2 columns on your phone, absolutes and conditionals. Who speaks in certainties, who speaks in conditions, and where you can check whose calls actually land. 7 days of that, and you will never hear a confident man the same way again. And apply the missing scoreboard yourself. When someone makes a big call in your presence, write it down with a date, then check it. You'll discover most loud predictions are never checkable at all. This company is going places. That approach never works, which is itself the tell. A real forecast has a date and a number on it. A performance has neither. One warning before you go. Don't flip the lesson into its own hedgehog theory. Certainty isn't always a con. Surgeons and pilots had better be sure. And there are moments when a fox must pick a path and commit. The skill isn't distrusting confidence. It's noticing when confidence is the product being sold. Because in work, in money, and in people, the rule holds with disturbing consistency. The loudest conviction in the room is usually the quietest insecurity, with better marketing.
No causes problemas, no incomodes a nadie. Quédate quieto.